Hello, I'm Mark Hansen, and today we're going to go over some basic gun safety and handling issues. First thing I'll start off with is a revolver. This is a 4440, single action only. When dealing with any firearm, you always assume it is loaded. You never point it at anyone, and you never put your finger on the trigger until such time as you are actually prepared to fire. One of the first things to check with any firearm, once you pick it up, is you always make sure it is unloaded. In the case of this firearm, it has what's called the loading gate. By opening it, I can inspect the cylinder. I can turn the cylinder and see every chamber to make sure it is unloaded. At that point, I have made sure the gun is clear. This gun works on the principle of single action only. You have to cock the hammer yourself every time you want to fire it. Once you pull the trigger, drops the hammer, fires, you have to cock it again. It's probably one of the simplest mechanisms out there. Whenever handing a firearm to another person, you always make sure it's clear, hand it to them in such a way that it never points at them. Second firearm we're going to cover is a .22 semi-automatic. This is a single action semi-automatic. Once again, once you pick up a firearm, you open up in this case, you open up the slide to inspect the chamber. Also, it has a magazine, which you want to make sure is empty as well. In this case, the magazine slides into the bottom, locks in place, and you would close your slide, prepare it to fire. Also, on the more modern firearms, you do have a safety. The older single action, there was no safety. This has a safety which would prevent the gun from discharging. Once you were prepared to fire, you could put your finger on the trigger, turn your safety off, and prepare to fire. Same concept happens when you want to hand the firearm to another individual. Open the magazine, open the slide, make sure that the magazine and the chamber are empty before handing it to another person. This happens to be a target gun. It's designed for up to medium range target shooting. Very accurate. It's been around a while. This gun's about 45 years old and still shoots wonderfully. Last on our list is another semi-automatic. This is a Desert Eagle. This one happens to be a .357 Magnum. Fairly powerful handgun. One advantage is it's fairly heavy, so it doesn't kick too bad. I've probably seen this in a lot of various motion pictures. Same concept applies. If you were to ever find this firearm, pick it up, you open your slide, which locks it open. You can inspect the chamber. You can see the slide to make sure it's empty. This one has the magazine release as a button underneath your thumb. To arm this weapon, you would put a loaded magazine in, drop your slide, the gun's ready to shoot.
So in gun self-defense, if I'm teaching someone to disarm, can my finger, hand, skin get caught in that slide? Potentially, yes.
But the usual theory is it's much better to get your hand pinched than to be shot. So yes, it's possible that you will get your hand hurt, but I'd rather slam my fingers in that 10 times over than be shot by this even once.
And the makeup of the barrel as opposed to the slide?
This one is a little different than most semi-automatics that are on the market today. This has what's called a fixed barrel. So this part, none of this part here actually moves. Only this lower rail and the back receiver move. So I suppose if you were in an attempt to fight someone who was using this against you, a grip from above about like that would be your best bet, and of course diverting the muzzle away from yourself. Even if they fired at this point, what would most likely happen, yes, the gun would go off, but it would fail to feed. In other words, it would fail to work the mechanism properly and load the next round. In other words, it will not shoot again until the person can clear the jam that you've just created, because it can't overcome the additional resistance of your hand rubbing up against it. So in essence, you would have pretty much disarmed them until such time as either they could break away from you and clear the jammed round. So again, better to get pinched than shot. That pretty much covers what we're going to go over today. Basic gun safety: always assume a gun is loaded. Even if you see someone check the firearm yourself, once they hand it to you, you check it. Never trust somebody that tells you a gun is unloaded until you've checked it yourself. And that pretty much concludes what we have to go over today.